Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Three Idiots Talk Aquariums podcast. Back at it again. It's. I hope you guys been enjoying the previous episodes, and would love to hear your feedback if you have any. But today we're talking about medications in the fish world. But first and foremost, I thought we'll go around the room and see what's going on with everyone's fish tanks at the moment. See if we've got any exciting news or that. So I don't know if you want to go first, Ryan, with your
Hello.
updates.
Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Updates. I don't think what is going on in the Fishroom. I don't really have any updates. I'm just I'd call it business as usual. Just everything's ticking along. I guess with maybe it's winter. Then I'm seeing a little bit less spawning and stuff like that of the fish. I think it's all the pressures and the temperatures and stuff changing. I still haven't had to turn my Fishroom heater on yet, so temperatures are dropping a little bit, not too much, but I haven't really noticed a lot going on. Kind of just been maintenance and just ticking away. Nothing.
Got rid of some of those Livingstone you had kept kicking around, didn't you?
Yeah, I got rid of 2 Livingstonies, so that's always a win.
Could be worse.
Still got a good deal on a whole bunch more. Great fish, but not really great fish.
Listeners out there?
Potentially not even great fish. But anyway, if you've got a massive tank and don't mind them eating everything you put in there that's smaller than them, then yeah, go for it. Keen as.
I know a guy. All right. Well, sounds good. I suppose no news is good news.
Nothing.
What have you had going on, Cam?
Fish-wise, I'm still losing honey gouramis at a horrific rate. The fry, it's just the small ones. Once they get to a certain point, they seem rock solid, but it's when they're small. I'm wondering if they're not getting enough food to keep them going. So I've increased the feeding a little bit, which of course is then increasing the waste, which means increasing the water changes on it, and that's not stopping the death rate either. So I'm not quite sure. I'm a little bit stumped with what's going on there. So
was it just stress from the move, maybe?
Well, originally I thought that, but it's been nearly 2 weeks or even longer since they've been in here now, and they're still popping off. So I think you can kind of rule that one out now. And it's just the smaller ones. I mean, they're all quite small, but it's just the really small ones that are dropping off.
Is it quite a high loss rate, or is it just a random few here and there?
5 or so a day.
Right, it's quite high. Because I was going to say, obviously, it's normal to lose some of the smaller ones. Some, not like, I wouldn't say 5 a day, but maybe 1 a week for a couple of weeks, probably. You'd expect the little runty ones to.
Yeah, not on a daily
naturally sort of vanish.
Mm.
They're not aggressive fish, so they're not going to beat each other up. Really.
No.
Well, a little conundrum for you there.
Yeah, contrastingly, the shellies in the tank right next door to them are absolutely fine. So, go figure.
Nice.
But those African Cichlid, so they're
the most important ones.
They're going to be a lot better than anything else you got.
They've also grown up in the same tank, so there's been no change of any description. But again, it's been at least a couple of weeks now, so I wouldn't have thought that'd be affecting them either.
Maybe you need to add some bottled bacteria to that tank. Just see if that works.
Chuck some Malefics in that bad boy.
I'm pretty sure Malefics will help them. In fact, what is Malefics under them being labyrinth fish and then not being able to gulp any air whatsoever? Or is it
I think Malefics, it doesn't do anything anyway, but it would do bad things for labyrinth fish. So we won't do that.
Won't advocate for that. Yeah.
No.
Oh, well, for me, I don't really have anything too exciting that's happened. I've probably had another 100 spawns of Julies since we last spoke, but that's probably about it. They're just, breeding up a storm for no apparent reason, so that's good fun. But yeah, nothing business as usual for me too.
Oh, sorry, I did have something exciting happen. Cam brought out like 30 bristle noses. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We got your cleaner fish around.
That was the highlight of my week. I now have another 30 bristle noses distributed through my tanks, which eating some of the algae off them.
I was gonna bring a starlight, but then I was like, "That's a waste of time.
Starlight's
It'll just disappear, and it'll disappear down the back of the tank and never be seen again."
Yeah, well, that's what all plecos do, really. So yeah.
Yeah, but still, at least the bristle nose costs $3 to do it with.
Yeah. We'll use cheap fish.
Yeah, but no, they're cool fish. I like them. They're one that everyone seems to enjoy, just like kids and that. They're like, "What the heck is that? Looks like a little alien."
Yeah, and also I like them in tanks because they obviously clean the algae. But if you do get a bit keen on the food or the fish miss something, they're always going to pick it up and help you with that in that regard.
Dispose of it.
Yeah, help you with the water parameters and that.
Get some big chunky boys.
Yeah, when they get too big, I will just give them away.
Yeah, well,
start again.
Sounds good. Well, so that was a lovely discussion on our Fishroom updates. But now we'll jump into the meat of the discussion, which, as you would have noticed from the title, is medication. So this is one that I get asked a lot about in terms of what to make. Like, people want to make a podcast on it, want us to make a podcast on it, and like always wanting advice and all this kind of thing. So yeah, that's what this is, I guess. And I thought a good place to start would be particularly for Cam, I guess, but Ryan as well. When people are having issues of any description and come to you saying, "Help, X is a problem," or like the fish is doing whatever, what is your kind of process of elimination, or like problem solving steps to kind of find out what's going on and recommend what the person should do with it? Like, where would you start from, step one of someone comes to you with a problem?
First, I generally try and work out if water parameters have been checked recently and whether it's possibly a case of high ammonia or something along those lines causing something. Following on that, work through is a fish being bullied? Is it a stress-related type scenario? And then following through from that, if we're still getting further, working out whether it's internal, external, if it's external, if it's fungus, or if it's bacterial driven, and then if it's something that is available on the shelf, or if it's something that a vet's going to need to prescribe for a slightly more intense sort of medication. So if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
yeah.
I would say a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times when people is coming with some sort of health issue, it is some form of water quality problem. Even like, I don't quite know how to say, but like people who are very like keen hobbyists or like bigger in the fish space, like, they might have 30 tanks. There's a lot of times where it's like they come with like, "Oh, what is this? The fish has some weird thing on the side of it. What's going on? I don't test my water, so it's fine, but they've got a fungus." And then a lot of times it's like, "Oh yeah, your ammonia is sky high and it's just the slime coat is eroding." That happens. Like, there's a lot of times where it's like you kind of have to take a step back and start from step one, even if you're someone who should know better. Well, know better, like, not in a confrontational way, but like, what to do. Because I even occasionally it happens to me where like something whack is going on. I test the water. I'm like, "Oh yeah, something's gone horribly wrong. I've forgotten to plug the filter back in," or like, whatever. I find that is a very good first step, and oftentimes it'll sort of solve the problem, is figuring out what's going on. And then, like, we won't get into it, but, like, do your water changes, add cycle media, cut down the feeding, all this kind of thing. So yeah, I mean that's a very good first step. How about you, Ryan? What do you think? Obviously, with Africans, it'll probably be a little bit different, but what do you have?
I guess that I will also echo the sentiment of like, keep it simple, stupid, and start with the simple shit. It usually is water quality. I've crashed tanks, I've forgotten to plug tanks in, I've overfed fish, I've done all that sort of shit before, and I'll still do it again, no matter how long I keep fish for. So the first thing I do if the fish start looking real manky, especially if it's a whole bunch of them, is just do a massive water change, and just see if that perks them up. I mean, I don't really have test kits and stuff because I don't need them, but yeah, if they start looking real manky, especially if it's one or two, it could be something else. But if it's the whole lot and they're just looking like crap, you just do a big massive water change if they're not eating, do a water change. But yeah, with Africans, it's often stocking and aggression that causes the problems, and and I guess it's all symptomatic as well. Like, what is the fish doing? Is it all the fish?
Yeah.
Is it one fish? Is it eating that's swimming around? With Africans, is it just hiding up the top of the tank with no fins, with all its fins shoot off? Like, there's a lot of symptoms that you can sort of tell stuff. Medication's really hard. I've spent a lot of time. We spend a lot of time arguing about medication, discussing medication. I've got various books and references, and I've been lost on the internet for hours and hours and hours trying to figure out what to actually do, and how to do it, so
Yeah.
And I think as long as we keep looking, we're still going to keep learning and changing what we think and what we do, really, discovering new stuff.
I suppose I have a bit of a controversial opinion about sort of that kind of thing, which, I mean, now's as good a time to say it as any, but I very much think we, as like a hobby and like just average people, have no idea what's going on. Like, aside from like the basic stuff, like, a fish gets in a fight and has a big chunk out of its side, that's gonna be pretty obvious. But like, in terms of like diseases and like parasites and stuff, we have no idea. And I think really the only way to really know what's going on is like, gill scrapings and like fecal samples and like stuff like that, which is out of reach for 99% of hobbyists. And I think because can you shut up, George? A lot of people think that, argue that, antibiotics should be easy to get, like over the counter and stuff. But like, I very much disagree with that sentiment. But I just think we don't know. And the only real way to know is with, sorry, this cat is not shutting up. The only way to really know is with
science,
sort of testing and stuff that is out of reach for people, and probably shouldn't be in reach. Like, it shouldn't be a normal person's responsibility to figure out what exact parasite is going on with their fish. That's where someone like a vet is trained. Like, that's their job. So like, go there. It's just hard with the cost barrier, but that's kind of what I think about it, at least.
And I also believe the same. A lot of people just see crap on the internet. Someone's got a fish that's got some fuzzy crap on it. Oh, it's white spot. Do this. Someone's got a skinny fish. Oh, go to XYZ shop and buy blah blah blah. But it doesn't actually, like, it's not actually factual. It's not actually the right thing to do. You feel like you're doing something, and the shop's making some money, but it's not, without actually doing some sort of diagnosis and clinical investigation. Looking at symptoms.
a lot of the problem with that is like, it's like, oh, I had a similar issue it looks similar. I use this medication to fix it. So like you should use that same medication, but it's like, you know, maybe two parasites present quite similarly, but the treatment for them is, you know, different. But it worked for me one time, so it'll work for you one time. But even though it looks similar, it is actually different, something different going on.
Also, I argue with people about this on the internet all the time. Just because
sounds good for your mental health.
Just because you had a fish that had something wrong with it, and then you added some crap to your tank, and that fish got better, doesn't mean that what you added actually did anything. You know what I mean?
No thanks.
Like, yeah, there's a lot of snake oil products out there. There's a lot of crap that doesn't do anything, and sometimes when you notice the fish and you naturally do an extra water change and keep an eye on what you're feeding and actually start taking a bit of notice of the tank and going, oh crap, I might have stuffed up there, you naturally improve the environment they live in, their immunity, their, you know, their response to it, and they naturally sort of heal. Just because you added some magical oil to the tank doesn't mean it actually did anything. You know, so we're talking about actual products that do stuff and work.
I think, like, for a lot of things like good diet, clean water, minimizing stress is enough. Like, if you've got a fish like, I don't know, an Oscar, for example, that has got into a fight with another Oscar and has a big chunk out of its side and like messed up fins and all this, you don't need, it's like, it doesn't need intervention, you know? Just keep the water clean and give it some time and it'll heal up in 3 days and the fish won't even notice, kind of thing.
That's before the fact.
You what, sorry?
That's preventative. That's before the fact of actually needing any medication, and I'm sure you're aware, as like I am, many times fish are past that point of
agreed.
Secondary infection can kick in, and that's where you do need to look
exactly
at other courses of action.
Yeah,
I'm just saying this is more like a preventative thing because, like, there's a particular shop that I won't name, but if you have that specific issue of a chunk gets taken out of it, you'll get, you know, Malefix and like salt and methylene blue recommended to you, but that's not needed. That's like extra money you don't need to spend, and
salt and meth blue is probably a good place to start.
Oh yeah, I agree. Things. It's like, it's good to have on hand, but I don't think you need it. You know. It's like just a, you know, extra medication. Oh, excuse me, that was gross. It's just like extra medication. Because I think probably segues nicely into something else, but I think this, particularly with fish, over medication is a problem, and I think it's something that's like controversial take, but it's like an American influence, particularly from someone like Aquarium Co-op and stuff. Like, I think we way over medicate our fish, and that is fine. Like, I think it probably helps short term, but it shoots ourselves in the foot long term.
Arguably, we don't over medicate here because we don't have the medications to do it, though.
Yeah, over there they get a lot of stuff that we can't get, which they do pour into their tanks. Well, the biggest one that I see with this is people who regularly worm their fish without actually understanding what they're actually doing. So they buy some random wormer from a random shop with and the dosages on half those wormers are wrong anyway, that I've found from looking at the actual books that these pet shops are advertising. But anyway, that's a different story. And then they half dose them, and then they don't actually do the gravel back, and they don't actually retreat in 10 days. And they're only treating one medication when you can treat like 4 or 5 different wormers to actually treat the 4 or 5 the different species of worms that the fish could get. So they're basically just pouring crap into their tank, which is just going to affect, you know, the whole environment these fish are living in for no reason.
The problem with that sort of thing is then it just like the pathogens and stuff get more immune to it over time. And then when you run into a big problem of, they really seriously have X parasite, the the dosage isn't going to kill them because they've been exposed to it at a lower dosage for a long time. It's like they're basically vaccinated against it. And
they
then
start getting immune
when
to
you're
it.
trying to kill it, it's not going to do anything. And then that's a problem.
Is there scientific proof of that? I've got two parts here. Scientific proof of that actually happening? Parasites or whatever being immune, beginning to get a resistance on particular medications or particular chemicals? Or is that just a wives' tale that people believe?
I haven't looked at it about parasites, to be honest, so that's a bad example. Yeah. But like there's plenty of evidence about bacteria with antibiotics, like
but we don't have antibiotics.
You can get it, and you can get antibiotics, and like plenty of people still treat tanks with antibiotics. It's not, you can't get it from the pet shop, but like you can get a prescription, or you can get it online and stuff.
99% of the hobbyists, that's not achievable because they've got to go to a vet to get it, for example.
And usually,
but you buy on Amazon.
And you're going to tell your vet this is what you've got, and they're going to that might not be it.
Yeah, we don't want to advocate buying on Amazon or doing stuff illegal.
Definitely don't do that. But like people do, people buy crack, so like you can buy antibiotics. It's not legal, and don't do it. But
don't give the crack to your fish.
Yeah,
I've never seen
crack is a bad medication
on that either. But maybe it'll work. I don't know. Probably not. Probably a waste of money as well.
So my other question that I had was regarding the people that worm on a regular basis. Do you think that again is because we can't get or easily get medications or cleansers or whatever you want to call them to treat various different things? So I can only get this particular product, so I'm going to chuck this in every month to make sure I get all my worms out of my tank and hope that I just get lucky getting the rest of them, as opposed to we've got the 4 or 5 different products that we need available, and so I'm actually presenting with something properly and then treating it required.
I think it's more of a thing of, oh no, you go, Ryan. Ladies first.
Lack of knowledge. We can get 4 or 5 over-the-counter worming medications in New Zealand, easy as. They're easy to get.
We can get what we need in terms of parasites. I think. I don't think that's it's not fish branded necessarily, but it does the job. But I think it also, so the caveat here is I have no idea, but as far as I'm aware, you do that for cats and dogs and stuff. So I think it comes from that that sort of regular worming, and then it's animal or pet is pet. So you do the same thing, but so I don't massively feel comfortable talking that much about it because I don't know anything about cats and dogs, but that's what people I've talked to who do it, that's kind of the sentiment that has been echoed.
Yeah, the difference there, I think, is a dog's going around and it's eating shit and it's sticking its nose and stuff, and it's going around places and picking up crap. And
cats and dogs always have worms.
They roll in crap. They're just disgusting critters, Your fish doesn't go for a walk around the block. He knows. They went and got out yesterday and rolled in shit, literally head to toe in shit. So they know they're disgusting critters. I tell them that all the time. But fish don't do that. Nice. They don't go for a walk around the block and roll in shit. They just chill in their own environment. Because it's a closed environment. It is, but yes, obviously you can add fish from a different source, and they might have worms, maybe. I mean, but again, where are those fish going to get it from? They usually get it from bird shit, I think, is the key thing. And but yeah, I mean, I've definitely had it. I've definitely seen it, and I've definitely treated for it. I had a saga of a couple of really skinny fish, and if you post this thing on the internet, everyone says, use this, worm it. So I wormed them, it did nothing. I used all the different medications over 2 months. Then I got sick of it, and I went through the big process of trying to find a lab that would actually chop these fish up and figure out what's wrong with them. So that took ages to figure that out, and I found the lab, and then I sent the live fish down to Wellington, and I paid a heap of money, and they said it wasn't worms. So they said basically it was just a random bacterial thing that's in every single fish tank that can get them when they get run down. So improving filtration and water quality. So it came back to what we started talking about.
I still have your yellow OB that's like that, and no matter what I do, he doesn't get any weight on him. So
yeah, and
but he's
it's
fine.
not a
I
big
wormed him
deal. I
too.
think.
Yeah,
I think it's skinny fish. I think, like in anything in life, we get skinny fish,
it's like humans.
get fat fish. Like we get fish that do well, we get fish that are just sickly and get sick, and
It's like humans,
you know,
man. That's like me,
yeah,
fat fish.
yeah,
Well,
and
that's
sometimes also you're gonna have a fish that just drops dead, or gets sick, or
Yeah,
just
man.
does weird stuff. Like their heart could fail, their liver could fail, they could have a heart attack,
Get
their
cancer.
brain, they could get like some sort of brain aneurysm and go mental or whatever. You just don't know. Like we just don't know.
We don't know
So
enough of what goes on with our fish because it's like, obvious. It goes back to that same thing. It's like it's a fish. We're not gonna like the average person isn't gonna be able to get like MRIs and stuff on a fish. So like, how would you know if it's got some brain shit going on?
My other
yeah,
thought and question on like preventative worming, because that's sort of where we're at, is where do the worms come from? So like if you've got this tank that's been set up for 2 years, you've not added any extra new fish, you're feeding a pre-prepared packeted food straight off the shelf, where are the worms and the parasites coming from to all of a sudden need to be preventative worming? If it's outside pond, I get it. Birds fly past, drop things in. If you're adding new fish, I get it. Could come in that way. If you're feeding live foods from an unclean source, I get it. It could come that way. But if you've got this closed system that you're not doing anything to, and you're feeding a dry flake, for example, the whole time, where can the parasitic worms come from to be needing to prevent them?
I think a lot of it is just like kind of fear, I guess.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like I definitely get that. It's like they're our pets, but if you're keeping, healthy fish that are like, growing well and happy and everything, they'll be able to deal with like a lot of stuff. Like not all of it, but like, every tank has ick and like fish TB and stuff floating about, but they are their immunity is able to deal with it because they're strong, happy, healthy fish. But a lot of it is fear, which I like. Like I say, I definitely get it, but it's not necessary.
I'd also go one step further than fear. I wouldn't say fear. I'd say I think inherently everyone wants the best. Like they want to feel like they're doing the best they can, and
100%.
and a lot of these I'd say big pharma, but big aquarium product manufacturers are really good at preying on people's emotions. You know what I mean? And they essentially invent products that they convince you that you need to add regularly to keep your fish healthy and do the best thing you can for your fish. That obviously shops can just upsell and keep churning more product over and making more money.
Going.
You know what I mean? And they make people feel good. I've got to add my thing. I've got to add this. I've got to do that. And then there's all sorts of crap, all sorts of stuff, and they say it's fine to keep adding it. It's gonna do this and that and the other thing. It's great, and people feel like they need to do that because they want to care for their fish and they want to be the best pet owners that they can be, and a lot of people use that sort of emotional language and that sort of emotional angle online when they're talking about teaching people how to look after their tanks. Oh, you should do this because it's the best thing to do for your fish.
Makes sense.
Do you even care? We're going to report you to the SPCA. You've got a duty of care and all this sort of stuff. You should regularly worm. You should do this. You should do that. And then people feel bad and they do all this random stuff.
And I think it particularly preys on like I'm not going to say like not new people because like new people wouldn't get exposed to that, but it's like people that like maybe like been keeping fish for like a year or something and like starting to get real serious but still learning. And then it's like, you get caught in between where it's like obviously if you've been keeping fish for like 30 years, like you, Oldie, then you will not know, like what is needed and what's not needed. And then if you're like real new, you have no idea. But it's like the people in between who are like just trying to do their best but still trying to learn stuff, and you get caught in between and then you end up, trying to worm your fish every month or like I don't know, why can't I think of examples? Adding stability and like all this kind of thing, where it's just kind of like that's money going around the money machine, of course, like shops and like the big brands and like importers and everyone's making their money, but like on junk that you don't need. And like I guess my take on that is like if people don't spend money on like stability or like worming stuff or whatever, they'll still spend money because they love their fish. Like they'll buy like a new plant or like a rock or like some other stuff. Like the money's still going to go around.
They could buy better food. They could buy,
exactly.
Better off buying better food than doing any of that stuff.
If there's anything I have learned, it is fish people will find stuff to spend money on. Like you have enough rocks, man. You don't need to buy more rocks. Like people find stuff to spend their money on. So I don't think that's a concern.
I agree with you at this stage where people are in. Like I know plenty of people that have been keeping fish for a very, very long time and swear by a particular product or two that they use it every time they do a water change. They use it in the middle of the week or what have you, and they swear that's the reason that keeps their fish looking amazing. But the reality is it's the fact that they're doing water changes every day and every other day or whatever and feeding decent food.
I think it's a lot of times like because from a say business perspective, like it's about like forming that habit. That's like what is important. So like when someone's getting up to speed with fish and like getting serious, you form that habit of like, all right, add stability every time you do a water change, and then once they start doing that, fish people particularly don't like to change. So like once you're doing that and you've not had any. Yeah, exactly. But like once you've done that and you start having it, it's hard to get like that habit's formed, and then you just keep doing it.
And they say this is a classic example of what I was talking about before. They say it works for me. It works for me. It works for me.
Exactly.
My fish don't die. It's like, hey, have you tried without it and seen if your fish do exactly the same? Because they will. But anyway, it works for you. But it doesn't actually do anything. But it works for you because you add it to your tank and your fish don't die. It doesn't actually.
Exactly. I had my little story, I guess. Like this is not that related to medication, but it's a funny story. I had a friend who was like super into fish. Had like probably like 30 tanks around his house. But then
I'm sorry, hang on. You keep fish and you had a friend. Just like, did you read this online?
Another fish friend.
Did you read
another
it online?
Fish friend.
Okay, all right.
But he like kind of pumped the brakes a bit and ended up just keeping like one discus tank and like nothing else. But like he swore by adding stability with every water change, and like that was what he did. And like no matter what I said, he always did it. So then one day I was at his house and I was just like, I'm taking this bottle of stability home. Just don't buy any more. Just do whatever you normally do. And I guarantee nothing bad is going to happen. Like if any fish die, I will buy you new fish and like all this kind of thing. But like I guarantee nothing bad is going to happen. And I was like super apprehensive and stuff, but I basically bullied him into it. And then nothing bad happened. And yeah, so he saved a bunch of money because like obviously a big discus tank uses a lot of stability. So like then he saved all this money and then bought plants and different fish foods and stuff like that and off to the races. But it's just like the same goes the opposite way. It's just like forming those habits with these preventative medications or with snake oil type products or whatever.
And the hard part is it's information overload out there. Like you Google something
exactly,
and because there's lots of money in it. This the first 100 pages, YouTube videos, even all the big content creators are all sponsored. So they're sponsored to feed you, to sell you this rubbish. And fish shops are great at it, and fish manufacturers, big pharma again, are good at it because they'll invent things that you need to try and keep you buying more stuff because that's what business is. Like if your fish are living, what else are you going to buy other than food and products to chuck in your tank? So
that's where I guess I disagree with the fish industry mindset. Is like people keeping happy tanks will buy more tanks or more plants or more fish or more
they'll
food
have
or
more
whatever.
success.
Like,
They'll have more success, which
yeah,
gets other people keeping fish. You know
money
what I
will
mean?
still go round. It's like short term. I guess short term pain because, like, you know, you're not gonna have that regular every week buying stability, but long term, more for everyone kind of thing.
It's also more ethical as well.
Yeah,
What do you consider a medication?
Ethics are made up. You what? Sorry.
What do you consider a medication? Because you've said stability about 50,000 times, and it's clearly not a medication. Just so people don't think stability is a medication.
I think I just got sidetracked about something that I'm passionate about. But medication's just like
we had, just full disclosure, we had an argument about stability just before we went live today. So it's probably still brewing. It's probably still brewing for some of us. It's still there.
Yeah, pitchforks are out. But yeah, medication is just like because on my website I call it the category it's not called it's medications and remedies. So it's like fixing illnesses. So like salt wouldn't be a medication because like a medication's like chemical, like I don't actually know, like chemical, like good stuff, like
because you can't use chemical because salt is a chemical.
Yeah, exactly. But then if I call it chemicals, then people will get confused because like prime is a chemical, but like
and I don't like using chemicals in my aquarium.
Yeah, but then there's like different, like so many different definitions. It's just like stuff to fix a problem of illness or like fish health. So like that could be salt, it could be antibiotics or anything in between. But yeah, I mean it is a tricky one.
We get antibiotics.
Yeah, but I mean like it's still a medication.
Yeah. But I mean like for what we can. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm looking at it as a shop perspective or a hobbyist.
Okay, so like the strongest shit we can get is probably like formalin, which is like that's insane to me because like that'll kill you, that'll give you cancer. So like that's crazy. And then like the weakest stuff is like Malefix or like I don't know some other random.
I wouldn't even
stress guard, garlic guard
as a medication because it doesn't do anything.
Well, so why don't we dive into that? We've mentioned it a few times. So, like, what the hell's going on there?
It's just what I talked about before. People who invent something and convince people it works to sell it with no scientific evidence that it works.
The what's it called? The simile metaphor? I don't know. I didn't do very well in English. The discussion thing that I see people talking about is it's basically like essential oils for humans, but for fish. So like, you know, don't want to get cancelled by the essential oil folk, but like it doesn't do anything. And you just put it in a tank and hope it does something. But
and a lot of the studies. Sorry, Karen.
Oh, I was gonna say, unfortunately, it does. Like, it would be cool if it did stuff, and like, I would love that. But unfortunately, doesn't work. Just kind of is like expensive water, essentially, in terms of the effect it has on the fish. So yeah,
and a lot of studies that I've done on it, from what I've read, and I haven't read every single study, and I'm not a scientist, but it is effective at doing stuff, but the concentrations you need to do to make it do anything, like your fish will be pickled and dead. Yeah, so at the small amounts that aren't going to kill your fish, it doesn't do anything.
That's like the joke I saw. Oh, sorry. I'll just tell a funny joke. It's like the joke I saw. Like they say you can kill. I can't remember what it was. Like you can kill cancer with nuclear weapons, but it also kills the host, which is what you're trying to avoid. So yes, continue. Comedy.
The hard part is with these sorts of things, and a lot of the arguments are that they it can support things on a level that we can't actually quantify. Like we talk about boosting the fish's immunity by feeding them good food. We can't actually ever measure that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like anecdotal,
we
like
experiential. As normal people, you know, like people say that garlic does all sorts of good stuff to fish, but a lot of the time you can't actually quantify that. So it's interesting. We just believe what we're told. So I believe that Malefic doesn't do anything, especially it doesn't do what it says it's going to do on the model. So I believe it's a
100%.
scam.
And it's funny you mentioned garlic because I add garlic to my like Rapashi mix and stuff, but once I run out, because I just use the garlic guard because I like easy. But once this bottle runs out, I'm not going to get any more because I don't think it really does anything. I haven't noticed any difference between like, because I've done some like science by myself where like sometimes I add it, sometimes I don't, and there's no difference. So once this bottle runs out, I'm just gonna can it and see if all hell breaks loose. But
yeah, and garlic is an interesting one.
I don't think
interesting one.
Yeah, the best thing I've seen about it, like the only thing that I've really noticed like a difference in is like the appetite. It makes fish eat easier, which I think it definitely does because like just like anecdotally, that's what I see. But and that's good for something like Rapashi because like fish get raised on like flakes and pellets. They receive Rapashi. It takes them a while to figure out that it's edible, but I don't know. Like they still figure it out. I don't know if that's the most essential thing.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of people say that it does boost immunity and all that sort of stuff. So I mean,
and it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to kill ick and stuff, But I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've seen it written. I haven't done enough research on it to comment, but I don't think it does from experience.
From what I've seen, on the balance of probability, garlic's probably a good thing to add to your food, especially if actually occasionally to boost the immunity and stuff. Whether it actually does anything or it's just making me feel better, I'm not sure. But I don't think it does.
That just goes back to that same thing, but it's that same thing as the preventative worming.
I think on the balance of probability, it's probably good rather than bad. But it does. But I don't think,
very least,
I don't think it's going to worm all my fish and kill all my bacteria and do all this crazy stuff that people claim it does. But I do think it's going to do something positive.
Yep. Yeah. Fair enough. So yeah, I guess the next sort of question I had is, so obviously we're limited in terms of medications we can get in New Zealand because it's such a small market. But what medications do we get that you guys think is good ones that, Joe hobbyist who has 2 tanks of random assorted stuff should keep on hand or should have relatively easily available should any problems kick off?
From what we've got, tonic and salt, not salt, tonic and salt are probably 2 that are worth having on hand for the best part.
By tonic, you mean the Wonder Tonic?
Wonder Tonic.
I rate that product too. I think it's amazing.
It's just like
green, ethylene blue and something
magic.
else from memory.
It's got a lot of stuff in it.
Archie, isn't it?
If you've got something externally wrong with your fish, even if you don't really know what it is, you can probably put Wonder Tonic in, and it's got enough stuff in it that it's going to hit a few things. And you're probably pretty safe there, at least as a starting point. And I told young Cam about this the other day. I was like, he had a couple of fish that were looking a bit manky, and I said, mate, just chuck some tonic in and see what happens. It's a good place.
It's these random Africans that keep having problems that I have no idea what's going on with, but they got better and nothing died, so that's the main thing. But yeah, it is good shit. And then also salt is cheap and it'll deal with a lot of the less serious stuff. Like you get a little bit of fungus or something, it'll knock it off in a couple days, and it'll cost you like $5 or something to fix. So that's another good option, I think.
And you don't need to buy expensive aquarium salt if you want to either. You can just buy salt from the supermarket. Rock salt from the supermarket is just pure salt. The only thing to do is to check on the back and see what the ingredients are. If it's got, I mean, I forget what the chemical name is for salt. Sodium
NaCl
chloride or something. Is it sodium chloride or something? Is that right?
Yeah.
I was going to Google it, but yeah, as long as it just says 100% sodium chloride, it's salt, and it's okay to add.
Yeah.
Like it's not.
The
It's
only-
just you just want just look for non-iodized on the packet.
There's a lot of
I've even
Probably the
information.
easiest way.
There's a
I've
lot
even
of
read
stuff.
studies that iodized salt is okay.
Yeah, I was going to say iodine's actually really good, especially for African cichlids. But again, go for the non-iodized stuff for sure, and we'll, later on we can talk about that one. But it's interesting. Iodine actually looks like it might be good or okay for fish, but I'd
There's
recommend
also-
There's
getting
some
pure
stuff
salt.
I think it's no good for though, but like
An anti-caking agent.
just be
Sometimes they put an anti-caking agent in it to stop it from sticking together. But I haven't seen a lot of that in New Zealand. Many just buy
Take
pure
into
salt.
account dosing rates. It's slightly different for the different granules of salt as well. So, like
Are
a
they?
tablespoon of rock salt is not the same as a tablespoon of table salt. So just bear that in mind if you are just grabbing a salt, you can't find rock salt, and you're using some other salt.
I am gonna say something that's gonna get me yelled at by both of you, but I use like reef salt for this kind of thing, and I have found much better success with that because like not just like you don't want the fish only salts, you want the ones with like the probiotics and stuff, which is like coral stuff. I don't know exactly, like it's for coral for something, and I've found those tend to, again, anecdotally, and probably just something that makes me feel better, but I reckon it's better and more effective than like your normal like just salt. So those are the kind of additives that I find beneficial, but could just be cap. Who knows?
I guess the hard part with it is like I use the marine salt too, but not for treatment, for other experiments that I've been doing. I think it's good because it's actually designed to be dissolved as well, so that's awesome.
Oh
but,
yeah, 100%.
But
it definitely dissolves much better.
It does have other stuff in it other than salt, though. It's so like if you were trying to actually measure out putting pure sodium chloride, I think that's what it is, in your tank, you wouldn't be adding like 1 for 1 if you were adding marine salt, because you're adding the other stuff that it's got in it as well.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't actually even measure salt because I'm naughty. I just chuck handfuls of it in.
Me too.
But
at least you got Africans, which is a bit more easy with it.
My fish are all very robust, although I've never killed a bristlenose either doing it, so they're obviously okay with it to some degree too. But yeah, if you've got loaches and you've got things that are sensitive, definitely do not just pour salt in your tank like I do. You do want to look up some dosages and keep an eye on things. Have a fresh water bucket there ready to pull them out if they start turning over and things like that, so but again, I haven't heard that many reports of people actually killing them with salt. It doesn't
I don't
seem
know.
to
That
be
seems
that
like
common.
a bit of a
I don't know if
wives'
it's a
tale,
myth.
I guess.
I don't know if it's a myth or not, but I wouldn't want to test it, and I haven't personally
Yeah,
tested
exactly.
it, so I wouldn't recommend
Not
people
worth
do off the back of our podcast. Probably just start off with a half dose, see how they're going, put a bit more in, see how they're going, And like I say, have a bucket of fresh water there with the near stone, so if they do turn over, you can rip them out, save them.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Well, what do you think? So I know we've kind of talked smack about worming fish for a long time, but if you do have to, if you are confident that there is a parasite going on or something, what is kind of your method to trying to solve that conundrum?
So it's an interesting one, and also, of course, fish do get worms, and they're not impossible to get. Especially in New Zealand, we have had fish with worms. I've treated my fish for worms. You guys probably all have, and it's probably done wonders for you.
Stuff that's wild caught in that.
Yeah. Also,
I have found.
just from the wholesalers and stuff, you might get fish with worms. We're not saying that no fish ever get them, but I'm saying they're not as prevalent as people seem to be doing it.
It's not a routine thing.
I don't think it's a routine thing. No, you could probably convince me that you had a quarantine system where you did worm all incoming fish, and I would probably support that. Then you would know. But yeah, it would depend. It would depend on a lot of areas. But the problem with worming is there's so many different medications you can get, and they all treat.
And they all do
something different.
They all do
different sorts of worms. So really, effectively, to do it properly, you've probably got to spend 6 to 8 weeks and treat with flubendazole, praziquantel, levamisole, and there's probably one other I'm missing. And metronidazole not really a wormer. It's not really a wormer or an antibiotic, but it's more of an antibiotic than a wormer. I probably wouldn't recommend it as like a just in case though. Unless you had those unless you happen to have some metro flakes, which we can't get in New Zealand, you could feed them that legally, and that would probably help, you know. But yeah, that's you probably want to use at least those 3 to effectively worm a fish and cover the spectrum. Or if you're really smart, you can actually get a microscope and take some poo samples and actually have a look at them and try and identify what worms and what eggs are actually there and treat for what you've got.
You got to really talk to a vet for that kind of thing, though, I reckon, because like even if I had the equipment, I would say there's a very low chance that I'd be able to figure out what's going on, because it's not my job and I'm not an expert.
The information is out there. The information is out there, and you can
figure out what it is.
Like if you Google what an aquatic flatworm looks like, or what a camelanus or whatever looks like, you can actually Google that, and you'll find microscope slides of it, and you can try and sort of what a tapeworm looks like, you know, and things like that. You can tell a little bit. Man.
Shit's just hard though.
I've bought a microscope and I haven't actually used it to check anything yet. But
we get it, you're loaded.
I've got one as well. I haven't even taken out of the box yet.
Cost me $20 off Facebook Marketplace, so it's hardly loaded. You know, if it's an old
I haven't even bothered. If I have had problems, I've just asked the vet, and they send it off and tell me what the hell's going on. But that's expensive is the problem.
Thoughts on things like potassium permanganate and colloidal silver. And then another one.
I don't keep discus.
Completely eluding me is another treatment of a similar type, and copper, cupamine or whatever it is. Is that those sort of treatments? Thoughts on them?
The only one I know enough about to comment on is copper, and from what I can tell, it's good shit. But it's not something that we have to deal with all that much in freshwater.
It's not really available either, is it now?
Not anymore, no. But that's only recent. That's only like maybe a couple months ago. I believe they stopped making it. I don't even think it's a New Zealand thing. I'm pretty sure they stopped making it. But copper is very good for like gill flukes and stuff, which is very common for marine fish and that. And people have a lot of success running copper systems. But I don't think it's something that we really have.
Looks like it's a saltwater tank mainly, mainly from what I've seen.
Yeah,
but,
like there is times where you get external parasites and stuff in freshwater, and it would be good, but not a lot. It would be rare to have that kind of thing.
Copper's really good for velvet, isn't it? Is that what it was good for?
Yeah, it's good for velvet as well.
Yeah, but I guess there's other ways to treat
velvet,
it.
Gill flukes, all that kind of external.
There is another way
stuff.
to treat it. You asked about PP. PP's potassium permanganate is good. You can definitely play with your PP. Anyway,
funny guy.
But the caution with potassium permanganate is it is really harsh. Like
pretty nasty.
It's really nasty stuff, and you got to be real careful with your dose. You're talking like, you know, tiny parts per million and stuff to dose it and that, and you got to be really onto it. And if your fish is real stuffed to start with, they're probably not going to be strong enough to survive the treatment, I've found. So yeah, it is good, but only really good if you know exactly what you're doing and you can be precise enough to actually get your dosages right, and you follow everything to the T. And find a good discus breeder that's done it and does it, and follow their advice. And have the what's the hydrogen peroxide? Is it the stuff that neutralizes it? Have that on hand as well from the pharmacy, just to neutralize it as well in case things go crazy. But I mean, you probably won't get a second chance if you muck it up because your fish will just be dead. It'll stuff them.
I think that's very much so. Like discus people use it like preventatively, which I don't really understand. I don't know enough about discus, but I think in terms of like general fish life, I think it's very much a sort of final option. Like it's either this or bust kind of thing. Because of those reasons of like it'll kill anything. But that includes your fish.
It strips the slime coat right off your fish too. It'll kill anything organic, and the idea is you treat it strong enough that it's going to kill any gill flukes and strip the mucus layer right off your fish, but not kill the fish. And it's a really fine line there between, and that's where a lot of experience comes in. I've tried to use it a couple of times and had very mixed success, and so I don't even have any because I just didn't really enjoy it or like it. And I think there's other ways to treat things if I need to.
It's like fish chemo, basically.
Yeah,
it's very harsh on the fish, but it's very harsh on the thing you're trying to kill.
Yeah. And I think that balancing act between killing what you're trying to kill and not killing the fish is quite fine. Again, I haven't used it much. A discus breeder would probably say I'm an idiot and they use it every day, but yeah,
they'd probably say that because you keep Africans.
Probably. A lot of the discus guys use it, I believe, at a lower rate. Like I was reading Wattle Discus use it and stuff like that. They use it a lot in all their tanks, essentially just to sterilize their tanks. I think they've found that young discus die at a certain age, and if they use this by a certain age or whatever, they didn't die. So
I have been considering using it in my sterilization solution for nets, because I keep all the nets in like strong shit just in case, and I have been thinking about it, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I
think they're probably
actually, now that I think about it, for no reason.
If you
that's what I was thinking.
Dipped it and left it for a couple of minutes, and then put it in fresh water, it'd probably be fine. I guess in a retail environment, you've also got to be careful with children coming in and stuff. If you're leaving that sort of thing lying around, because it is. It would
definitely
nasty.
be on the top shelf where you have to get on the ladder to get to it, kind of thing. But
yeah,
that is strong shit.
But I guess you can use formalin for that. You could even use chlorine for it.
I just use like a stupid amount of salt. Like, if I put my hand in the salt bucket, it kind of burns. And there's just a whole bunch of undissolved salt at the bottom because it's like completely saturated. So, and to be fair, I've never had any issues with it, but it's just a
Well, you've got to put these precautions in place. You've got a lot of fish coming and going, so you do have a lot of high potential of introducing something. This is what it is.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just like a better safe than sorry kind of thing. But I haven't had issues with diseases jumping between tanks or anything. But got to be careful because, why not?
If you had a sump system, it might be a bit more of an issue, but
I don't.
We don't get it.
Too soon, man.
Okay, sorry. Yep, carry on.
What other medications do we have about that's potentially helpful or not helpful then? Because obviously all the Furan-2 and stuff disappeared.
It kind of got mentioned before.
Methylene blue.
I was going to say methylene blue is good for like fungal stuff or stress stuff or that kind of thing. It's pretty like gross. Like I have plenty of t-shirts covered in methylene blue, but it does the job. So that's all that matters really. And then we got formalin as well, but I kind of fall on the same side with formalin as I do with PP, is like, be very careful. Not so much for the fish. I think the fish will be fine more or less, but like it'll give humans cancer and like it's pretty gross stuff. So like be very careful with it. Yeah, keep it away from kids, that kind of thing.
I think
it's good. It's strong.
If you're going to have stuff on hand, Wonder Tonic's probably one of the big ones, I reckon. I was just Googling the ingredients because I forgot, but it's got archiflavin in it, and it's got meth blue in it. It's got quinine in it. I don't even know what that really does, but and it has meth blue is good.
Green in it, eh?
Malachite green, yeah.
It doesn't, apparently.
Doesn't?
Oh.
I thought it did, but it does not.
Maybe
How
it's white
wild.
spot that's got malachite green in it. Something's got it in it, but it's not available by
Probably
itself.
the green. Yeah, it is. Only in 1 litre bottles though, but it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, tonic's good to have. Meth blue is in tonic, but meth blue is also real good if you got fry and stuff. You don't want to be adding all that other stuff if you're just trying to raise like eggs or something. You want to keep fungus down on them.
Yep. Yeah. What other medications are good?
Meth blue is also
Flibendazole,
handy.
levinosol, and praziquantel are the best. The 3 big wormers to have.
But I wouldn't recommend
probably
having them in stock though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was like, it's probably not worth keeping them on hand, but like, if you are needing them, those are the ones to look for. But they're all branded differently. Oh, yeah,
and
they're
also
all branded differently, like for birds and stuff, but it doesn't matter.
You can buy all of the wormers offline, cheap,
Yeah,
if you want to. All of
the
them.
only problem is
Easy.
they come in stupid big packets, which
No, they
you don't need.
Oh, yeah. I guess aviverm, flu. Yeah, I guess for average person they're going to be too big. Yes.
Yeah, like you're probably
you buy 100 gram of
posting
flu,
on
but...
Facebook. Who the hell's going to need that? I don't even need that. But
yeah, yes.
you just ask on Facebook or something, and someone will give you cheap half a packet or something. You don't have to buy a whole packet that'll just sit around for no reason.
Yeah. But you don't need to keep that stuff. It's stuff that you keep on hand, I reckon, is stuff that if you like, I'd say stuff that like if something happens on a Friday night and you live in Nelson where there's like no civilization, you can't even get to a shop or anything like power or internet. You know what I mean? Like you can't get anywhere till Monday morning. What do you need to get on hand to get you through the weekend? You know, you're not going to discover on Friday night, oh my God, my fish have got worms. I need to chuck all this crap in. You're not going to discover that. It's just not going to happen. You know
I think the only 2 I'd really say would be good to have on hand would be like the Wonder Tonic and salt. Maybe methylene blue if you're feeling frisky, but probably not necessary.
But even then, salt, you can just go to the supermarket or your local dairy, or probably even your petrol station and buy it if you needed to.
Yeah, but like if you live in Nelson, then they'll be closed at 4:30, and
they'll turn the power. There'll be no mice running around running the power machines. So you know.
He's covering his webcam just in case you're listening.
You guys are dicks.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least they can talk shit about Ryan living in Helensville where they fucking steal people's windscreen wipers, so that's fine.
Medication-wise, that's literally all we've got, though, isn't it? Let's stay on topic.
Pretty much.
I've got a story about the windscreen wiper. There was a business out here that went broke, and they were auctioning off all the vehicles, and I was looking at the vans because I was thinking, I might get a van for work or whatever. And one of the vans said that it's missing the rear windscreen wiper. Must be a Helensville thing. But anyway, that's a side note.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I mean, in terms of over-the-counter stuff, that's pretty much all that's really available that'd be needed. You can, like, you definitely can and should go to the vet to get very strong shit. Like, it's certainly doable. It's just not over the counter, and I don't think it should be over the counter. I think I mentioned last week when Penny the arowana got real sick, I got some super strong antibiotics. It was that had to be injected, and it did the job. So like, you can get them. You have to pay, but obviously, I think for something like antibiotics, I think that's definitely the right way to go. So yeah, that it's definitely doable is basically the moral of the story.
So I guess we kind of missed a trick here, and we probably made it really overwhelming for someone who's like a beginner. You know what I mean? We've kind of gone quite deep into it. But I guess
we'll do a surface level overview for those beginners still listening.
I think we need if there's any beginners that aren't completely overwhelmed right now, and if your fish are stuffed, what are you gonna do? You know, what do you do? I mean, the first thing I'd say is do a water change. You know, the next thing I'd do is probably say, the hard part is I'd say you got to reach out for help, and Facebook is usually the place that people go for that. but you can't.
Facebook's probably the worst for medication, I'd say.
But you can't actually believe, like I see it all the time, and probably 1 or 2 out of 10 of people have actually got it right in what they've replied. So it does depend on
not even right necessarily, just like ballpark, like
actually,
close enough where it's like that is good enough advice.
Yeah, it's hard to say what's right or wrong without clinical diagnosis. But looking at the photo, listening to the description, and reading the response, I'd say, well, there's only 1 or 2 of them out of a bunch that are probably logical and most likely to do anything that might possibly help. So,
yeah, for sure.
So what are we saying that people should do? You know,
so there's 2 things. Number 1, if you're listening to this podcast, just ask either myself, Ryan, or other Cam. That's probably, you'll be pretty safe. You won't get recommended Malefics, I'd say.
This sounds like something that I heard recently about 3 or 4 years ago, where one sort of political party said they're the one source of truth.
Not the one source of truth. Just like if you're already listening, we're already there. But if you're not listening, then I'd say just
if they're not listening, it doesn't
kind of step by step. Well, if you're telling your friend who hates us, just go step by step. I'd say don't just run to the shop and buy the first thing you see. Kind of look, is it bacterial? Is it fungal? Is it a parasite? Then kind of build it up from there, and you'll have your best sort of picture of what the problem is. And then once you have that, then you'll be able to go from there and figure out what the best solution is.
I guess.
So yeah.
Starting at the beginning, also, I think a lot of people, you probably should start off and establish if you actually got a problem. You know, like if you've got a tank of like, say, 50 guppies or whatever, and one of your guppies is looking a little bit sad and stuffed and starting to keel over, it may just be that guppy has had its time or something else has gone wrong. Like you might not need to
genetically messed up or whatever.
You might not need to actually necessarily, or you might have bought a bunch of crap fish, and you might not actually be a lot you can do for them. So you do have to establish that to start with. If it's just one fish out of a bunch, it's probably, you know, you might want to euthanize that one fish and keep an eye on things and just see if you actually got a problem, you know, first before you jump down the rabbit hole. What do you reckon there, Hillbilly Cam, down there in Redville?
I think identifying what it is first is the most important thing. Like, there's no point of throwing this at it if it's not going to do anything. So trying to establish what it is that you're dealing with is first and foremost. And like you said, it might just be that one of the fish is at its point. It also might be that the one fish that's at its point is at its point because there's something going on the inside of it. But yeah, identifying, trying to work out exactly what it is, but it's a kind of a case like everything in this hobby. Like it's all hobby based. There's a lot of Chinese whispers. There's a lot of this work for someone, this work for someone. So we all kind of just lump it in that sort of category. There's a lot of actual scientific evidence, but nobody sort of deems to try and find it to make it work. And then people question, well, science isn't real because Pimifix worked for me just fine type of scenario. So it's a real weird and tough spot. I personally think.
I think what I often recommend to people when they start with fish is find someone locally that you know that you can get along with that has lots of tanks and lots of fish. You know what I mean? Like they could be your mentor. They could be your local fish shop. That could be someone from a club, if clubs even exist anymore. It could be anyone that's done it for a long time and has lots of fish, so they actually know what they're doing, and they could be a really good person to go to. You know,
this is too much emotions for this early in the morning. But I'd say like for me, I mean, that was you for me, like teaching me a lot of stuff about medications and like genetics and all this. So like, you know, that's cool.
You were pretty much my young grasshopper. Yeah.
And you don't have a beard because you're bald, so yeah.
I can still grow a beard.
Oh, nice. It's better on the bottom only than nothing.
Wax on, wax off, young petty one.
That's Star Wars, man. You're getting confused.
I confused Star Wars with Karate
Kid.
But yeah,
right.
you did come out and see me when you were young, and that was cool. But yeah, just find someone who knows
Still
what
young,
they're
big
doing.
boy.
Find someone who knows what they're doing and talk to them. And that may or may not actually be your local pet shop, because sometimes they don't really know what they're doing. And I'm not going to recommend or not recommend certain shops, but some shops will just sell you crap, especially ones that have got yellow signage and stuff like that. They may or may not know what they're doing. And there are good ones that have yellow. There's one that have yellow signs that do. There probably is a couple of people that really know what they're doing at shops that have yellow signs. So it's 100%. Really hard. It's a really hard one. I've seen some great ones. I've seen some shit ones. So it's just about going around talking to people and trying to figure out if they go straight to the shelf and try and sell you some crap without actually talking to you, and it seems like they know what they're doing or putting any interest into it, they probably don't know what they're doing. So go somewhere else.
100%. All good. All right. Well, I think we've gone over time enough. It's one we could probably talk on forever. So yeah,
it's a hard one. It's a really hard one without the information. We can't. We all struggle with information in this realm and knowledge.
I think this is a topic that might need revisiting.
The more I learn, the more I know that I don't learn and get more confused. And the three of 100%. Us spent a long time talking about this sort of stuff, and we all disagree and do all sorts of stuff. So it's interesting. It's an interesting topic, and it'll keep going forever.
Yep. No worries.
Cool. All right. Well, got old man Ryan here with the shiny forehead from Helensville, signing off. Inbred Hillbilly Cam from Nelson and young Cam. Hope you enjoyed us talking about medications today. I think we've probably suitably confused ourselves and confused you, and not actually given you much credible information. Cam's still working on that merch. There's been a lot of interest for it, so keep hitting him up. When he gets to the minimum order quantities, we'll send some through. And we'll talk to you guys next time when we still have not actually established what our subject is, like normal. Right. Even though we agreed we were going to. See you all.
Sounds good. All right. See you later.
See you later.